Welcome back to the Midweek Update.
Hey Mepham, welcome to this week's episode of Midweek Update.
Today, let's take a look at the cafeterias here at Mepham and discuss the election.
This and more as we take a look at what's going on this week on Midweek Update. I'm Haley Hepworth.
And I'm Riley Freed, and welcome back to the Midweek Update, the B&B show that brings you closer to the people and places in and around the Mepham community.
Today is our election episode, and what that means is that today's decision definitions is the final one. Let's see what Charles has for us this week.
Election Day 2020 is on November 3rd, and as teenagers, we're being bombarded with tweets, Instagram posts, TikToks, and Facebook posts. But we're teenagers, so we're not on Facebook. But they're out there, and they're all about the election. With all those social media posts, there is a lot of misinformation out there. We're not here to correct the misinformation on BMB's decision definitions. We're just going to try to explain some of the terms that you're seeing and hearing. If you want to learn what the candidates think about these things, the candidates have websites full of information. We're just going to explain the terms. So this is it, the final decision definition. With the election 6 days away, it's time for what to look for on election night. Now it's important to know these are not my predictions of what will happen or who will win or lose, but we are going to go through what to look for. As the results come in Tuesday night at 7 p.m., it will be the first poll closings of the night when Kentucky, Indiana, Virginia, Vermont, South Carolina, and Georgia's polls close. Some of those states will be too close to call, but we'll most likely know pretty early that Kentucky and Indiana went for President Trump, while Vermont went for former Vice President Biden. Trump should have a slight lead after that, but things will start to get close when big battlegrounds Ohio and North Carolina close. One early sign to watch for will be the results in Florida. Florida is a huge battleground state with 29 electoral votes and is an absolute must-win for the Trump campaign on their path to re-election. Unlike many other states, Florida should have its mail-in vote results counted and reported at 8 p.m. when polls close. Typically, more Democrats vote by mail or vote early than Republicans, and then the other way around with the Election Day vote. So if President Trump leads the pre-Election Day vote, he will be in a good position. However, if Democrats have a large enough lead early, Republicans will have a difficult chance of coming up with the votes. The final thing I'll be watching on election night, and possibly over the days that follow, is in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. These three states are in the same region and are very similar politically. Economic and industrial issues are especially important and were the deciding states in 2016. All three states voted for the Democratic candidate for 3 decades, but Trump won all three by less than 1%, and the essential question is whether Trump can do it again or will Biden take them back, as those three are the most important states for him and are must-wins for the Biden campaign. Like most of the country, there have been a huge rise in the early vote in those states. But unlike Florida, these states won't begin counting its mail-in vote until the polls close Tuesday night. If the results are close, it could be days of counting until we have a final tally. Another sign to watch for will be early vote that comes out of Texas. As of Monday, 3 Texas counties have already surpassed the total number of votes cast in them in 2016. What does it mean? We don't know until the votes are counted, but election watchers around the country have been amazed by the volume of early votes being cast in Texas and around the country. If high turnout favors the Democrats, this would be another bad sign for President Trump. You can watch the major networks as the results come in and live coverage on social media platforms. Either way, this Tuesday the voting will be over, but the counting will be just beginning, and we might not have a winner for a while. For a final time from Decision Definitions, I'm Charles Lashinsky.
That was the final episode of Decision Definitions, but we have Charles Lashinsky here in the studio to discuss the show and what's in store for the future.
Hey Charles, welcome to the show.
Hey Riley, I'm excited to be here.
So, what has it been like joining the Midweek Update team and hosting Decision Definitions these past few months?
It's been great. I never expected to have a role like this hosting a segment, but I've had a lot of fun with the show.
That's great to hear. Decision definitions has been a really important part of the Midweek Update. What do you hope people watching took away from it?
Well, my goal for the segment has always been to inform people of what the terms they're hearing mean, without getting too different opinions. I hope that everyone watching has been able to learn a lot about what they hear on the news so they can make their own opinions once they understand what the terms I define mean.
Yeah, I really think the show served that purpose perfectly. We've really enjoyed seeing you on the show and having you as a part of the Midweek Update team. So when do you think you'll be back on air?
That one's easy. Once we know the results of today's election, I'll be starting a new segment on the show called Transition Definitions, discussing how things will change throughout the coming months, no matter who the president is.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to the start of it. Thanks for joining us on the show, Charles.
Thanks for having me, I'll see you on Transition Definitions.
I'm glad Charles will have a new segment to start in a few weeks. Decision definitions has been a great part of Midweek Update this year.
Yeah, but the election hasn't been the only story we've been following throughout the school year so far.
That's right. One of the biggest developments this year has been how the district is handling different aspects of everyone being in school during the pandemic.
Right. For the rest of this episode, we are going to be looking at some parts of everyday life at Mepham and how it's been going so far.
The first thing we're going to be checking out is how band classes have worked so far. B&B got an inside look at what's been going on.
This is a spit valve. Put another way, it's a droplet collector, and you can find one on every brass instrument in the Mepham Symphonic Band.
Nobody is sharing a woodwind or a brass instrument. They all have their own. But I will say that everybody has been given a little spray of sanitizer to wash their mouthpiece out with each day. We also gave trombone players, they have the what's called a snake to clean out the inside of their instrument. And everybody has a bell cover. Every instrument, with the exception of flutes, has this at the end. It's another barrier to protect what we have.
And it's not just the physical restrictions of cleaning and spacing that makes high school music classes more difficult.
The new adjustments for COVID are necessary, but honestly a bit weird because I'm 12 feet apart from anyone else. And it's not affecting me that bad. It's not really that big of a deal, but it was nicer to be closer, but again, it's necessary.
We have enough time to practice because it's pretty much just the same period as last year, just with separation and in the different room.
December is normally a time when music fills the halls here at Mepham as friends and family pack into the auditorium. But with COVID restrictions currently in place, it's an open question as to how these concerts will happen.
At this time, we can't have indoor large events as of today. However, that could always change. It all depends on the infection rates and how well students and families outside of the community are following protocols. So right now, we're really focusing more on the process, more so than the product. So the process really is what students are doing in class, and the product would eventually be the concerts. I know that some teachers may be playing around with some virtual events, and hopefully by the springtime, this will be a non-issue, and we'll be able to have those concerts. But holiday, it's still up in the air. I'm not sure whether or not we're going to have them given the current constraints.
Even with all this uncertainty, Mr. Brandafino and the Mepham Band continue to play on.
We're still here, we're still playing. Even the other day, third period symphonic band was here, and we were really, they were playing. I posted on the Instagram page something that they had played, and it was really a nice moment because for the first time in a long while, it felt normal.
Thanks. Figuring out how a class like band can work due to the pandemic restrictions seems like one of the more difficult parts of reopening school, so I'm glad it's been working out so far.
Definitely. As the year continues, hopefully more and more activities like the arts can become a part of life at Mepham again. And speaking of the arts and activities at Mepham, Riley, I noticed you're wearing your tie-dye today.
Yeah, I am wearing my tie-dye as a result of the Mepham Spirit Week. It's day 2, and day 2 is tie-dye day. I noticed that you are also wearing your tie-dye, Haley.
Of course, of course.
Yep, I hope so too. But speaking of activities that have been coming back at Mepham, intramurals have still been going strong. Here's Connor Ward to talk about sports.
Thanks, Riley. And for your midweek week in sports, Bad news for the sports world and fantasy owners, as injuries continue to ravage the NFL. Browns premier wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. has gone down with an ACL tear, which he suffered against the Bengals in Sunday's Thriller. But good news for Mepham sports. Intramurals have gone off without a hitch. As intramurals continue, so does the probability of letting athletes play against other schools. When sports hopefully return in the new year. On B&B this week, tune into the Week 8 Primetime Fantasy Report featuring our very own Steelers fan, Miss Kalish, as this week's guest. So keep wearing masks and continue to stay safe, and we'll have all of our sports back in no time. From B&B, I'm Connor Ward.
Thanks, Connor. I'm glad sports have been happening at Mepham. As sports and the arts begin to come back, Mepham is looking more and more normal.
Yeah, but one thing that hasn't looked normal has been the cafeterias. B&B checked out how lunch has been going for students so far this year.
It's a lunch period like no other. Fifth period, or freshman lunch as it's called here in Mepham, has always been the biggest.
So what we did is we looked at all the other locations within the building. Of course, we are using our east and west cafeterias. We then determined that we could fit a large amount of students in our north gym. So that's another area where students are eating. And then the remaining students we decided to house in our auditorium, and we are allowing our students to split time between the auditorium and the cafeterias so that every student here at Mepham has an opportunity to eat during fifth period.
The result? Cafeterias in strange places.
It's good. It's a good opportunity to see all your friends and talk to them like a break in the day. But it's a little weird being separate from everybody and like talking to everybody. It's a little different.
They are one of the lucky ones. The students eating in the gym get to stay there for the entire period. For the rest of the 9th grade...
All right, folks, time to clean up, mask up, and head over to the auditorium. Let's go.
I think it's a little bit short, just 20 minutes, because it takes like 10 minutes for the lunch line, and then I have no time to eat.
Opening new places to eat and repurposing other spaces has led to some expected and unexpected challenges.
It just makes it different for people to be able to socialize behind barriers and masks. And it's a bit challenging, and I just feel a little bit badly for those folks, but they've been dealing greatly. You know, they've been doing a great job with it.
For B&B, I'm Emily Yucht.
Thank you. This is one area that can't return to normal just yet, as we focus on trying to follow safety precautions in school.
Yeah, but I think it's a good compromise that allows students to have lunch while also keeping everybody safe.
That's true. Be sure to stay tuned to Midweek Update and other B&B shows in the future to stay informed if there are any changes.
Well, that's it for this week's Midweek Update. We'll be back next week with all new stories from around the BMCHSD to bring you inside the parts of the community we don't always get to see.
Until then, I'm Haley Hepworth.
And I'm Riley Freed, and we'll see you all next midweek. You know, I think we'll get it right one day.
We will. I think we will.